You better run to the fridge and grab yourself a nice cold glass of iced tea, pull up in the shade, and kick back because this week's edition of 3 Minute Ag is fixing to come at you. All right, everybody, this week on 3 Minute Ag, Brandon Coe showed up to kick dirt with me. He's with Country Partners Co-op out of the Cozad location. We're standing out in the middle of a cornfield today, which is actually a bad idea because it's about 350 degrees, probably 400% humidity. And a couple big eaters like us, we might not even live through the whole episode, but we'll do the best we can till then. Brandon, this warm weather is what we needed to catch the corn up. What are we scouting for today?
You know, we're getting to that time frame here where we really need to start thinking about insects and potential problems we could have in the field. Now, one of those potential problems is Western Bean Cutworm. It's a problem that's plagued us the last several years in this area, and we need to start thinking about scouting for those and decide if we need to make treatments and make adjustments and correct that problem.
Okay, so before we can correct the problem, we need to know if we have a problem. Walk us through scouting for those.
Okay, so what I tell guys to do a lot of times is if you want a snapshot on whether you need to start scouting for these critters, you need to go on to insectforecast.com and you can get a quick snapshot of whether you've got a problem in your area. Okay, we went on to Western Bean Cutworm just today, saw that we're getting into a moderate risk area, so we're starting to see more moth flights. What we have happen is those moths come into the fields, they lay their eggs in the whorls, and then what happens is tassels come out, we've got egg masses, larvae hatch, they go to the tassels first, and once all the tassels are out, they start moving into the ear husk. Once they get in the ear husk, that's where we have a lot of kernel damage. We can have issues with grain quality, and once they're in the husk, they're really hard to treat. We just don't have a lot of great options. So we need to time treatment between that time and when they get in the husk to most effectively control. If you want to get an idea of how soon they're going to come out, once you find egg masses, if you see purple colored egg masses, you're probably within 24 hours of actually having hatch and larvae coming out. Ideally, as far as treatment, we want to time it if we can when 95% of the tassels are out. Okay, when we're actually going out to scout and see if we have a problem, what you want to do is go out in the field, you want to go through 10 consecutive plants and then come up with a percentage of how much are infected. You want to do that depending on what you're seeing, 5 to 10 different places through the field, and then come up with an overall average. Okay, if you've got untreated corn that doesn't have the Cry1F protein in it, then we typically 5% or higher, we want to be treating that with an insecticide. If you do have the Cry1F that is found in Herculex, Smart Stacks, we can bump that up to 10 or 12%. Depending on the value of the crop, if it's a food grade type of product, we're usually going to use that 5% treatment level more because grain quality issues become a real problem if the worms get in and start really chewing on the ears. So they can also cause other problems that we need to look at and treat sooner.
Sure, that makes sense.
The one other thing you might think about is if you're spraying fungicide already and you're at that 5 to 6% mark, but you do have it's not food grade, you do have the protein, for no more than it costs for insecticide, you might look at throwing that in the field there anyway.
Yeah, getting it all done in one pass and not having two applications.
Yep, absolutely.
All right, so if we're going to treat the field, we can run it through an airplane, we can run it through a pivot system. I mean, there's some different options. It's actually a pretty flexible way to treat them.
Plane or through your pivot, either way is a good way to control them.
Okay, all right, that sounds good. You said the moths will tend to lay the eggs in the whorls, so when we're out scouting, we're probably looking at upper leaves, is that right?
Yeah, generally we're looking at the top third of the plant. I mean, if you look at this plant on here, this is kind of what we're targeting. Once the tassel's coming out, usually the top 3 or 4 leaves, you'll find them. You're always looking up, they lay them on the top side of the eggs, and you can usually see them through the bottom. And like I said, they're in a tight mass, 5 to 200 eggs at a time. Start out white, and the closer they get to purple, then you know they're about ready to hatch. One thing about Western Bean, they're not a cannibalistic cutworm like some others. So you can run into multiple cutworms in the same, if we have a heavy infestation within the same ear. Once they're in that husk, it's really, really difficult to control them. That's why it's important to get out early, see what we got, and make treatments accordingly.
So this really is a case where prevention ahead of time is really worth it. Be walking your fields, talking to your crop scouts. If you need help, talk to some of the guys from Country Partners, your sales rep, or whoever you deal with down there. We can certainly help you with that. We can help you with the Rex and whatever else you need help with to scout for these bugs. Something you might want to look at doing, get out and scout your fields. Even if we're not going to treat something this year, it might give you some indications of what you might be up against next year. It'll help you with hybrid selection when it comes to bee seed time, give you some ideas of management strategy later, but there's certainly some stuff we can find that we can treat now. We can stop a problem before it gets too serious. Brandon gave us some really good information today, looking up the bug site. Give us that one again.
insectforecast.com, and you can look for corn rootworm or several other species. So it's a great heads-up tool.
And then the corn traits, give us that one.
Handy BT trait table, and if you just search that in a Google bar, you'll find that, and it's got a great listing.
All right, that sounds good. Does that do it for you today? Anything else you want to hit on?
That's all I got, Jake.
All right, that's all we got today. We're really starting to melt. It's probably time to find some ice cream. So refill that glass of tea, take the rest of the afternoon off. We'll see you back here next week.
Must be just